Okay, so chapter 1 homework is completely blank. Oh, yeah, because there's a little blue bar. All right, give me a moment. What happens when you start the recording? It takes forever. So basically, when I created the class, I worked under the assumption that not everybody would have their book by week 1.
Okay.
And so I copied the assignment out of the book.
Okay.
So all it is a screenshot or copy paste of those 2 pages from the book.
Mm-hmm.
So you just read the little article or whatever it is that it has, and then you answer the 3 questions at the end.
Gotcha.
That's all it is.
Okay.
And if it ever loads, I can show you, but it's taking its own sweet time. So I don't know if I did that with chapter 2. I think I might have just done it with chapter 1.
No, chapter 2 actually has detailed documents on one.
Okay. But yeah, that's why I did it that way. I'll come back to it. Okay, so we are doing chapter 2 this week because I am trying to be ahead so that we can do Enron, the smartest guys in the room, on week 5 and week 6. Or is it week 6 and week 7? So 6 and 7, I think. I don't know. It's one of those 2 weeks. I think those are the 2 weeks. Anyway, because I had 1 week set aside for Enron, but it takes almost 2 entire class periods for Enron. And so what we'll do is we'll start it on that 6th week, and we'll watch until the end of class, and then the next class period we'll pick up where we left off, and then we'll discuss when we're finished. That way, because we never really get to discuss after, because I'm trying to get through some of the lectures, and we have to cut it off. So I did a little different this time, just so we could do that. So, talking about licenses and certifications, do you think that IT workers should be licensed or certified?
Yes.
I mean, electricians and other fields, they have to be licensed and certified. So, what would be a drawback to not having IT workers that are certified?
You don't know if they know what
Do they know what they're doing if they have a license or a certification?
to do. You give a better understanding of what they know.
Okay. So some people are really good at tests and some people are horrible at tests, and some people can read the material or watch the videos and pass it instantly, while others who may have worked in the field for years still can't get a certification. Is that right? I mean, is that wrong that they should lose their job just because they can't pass a test?
Some people are just bad with tests, I guess.
Yeah. But like at Tinker, when I first started there, all you had to do is have a certification. Didn't matter which one. A year and a half later, they said you have to have the Security Plus certification by this date or you lose your job, period. Some people actually lost their job. Some people actually had the Security Plus certification, let it lapse before that date, and then lost their job because they couldn't pass the new test. Yeah, that was the new thing at Tinker whenever I was there. So now to get a job at Tinker, you have to have a Security Plus certification.
They could have just renewed it instead of taking off. That's all regular.
If they had done the CEU. So what happens when you get like the CompTIA certifications, it's good for 3 years. But then you can enroll in the CEUs, which is the continuing education credits. You pay each certification has a different fee. So you pay a certain fee each year. You complete however many CEUs that they say you have to complete in 3 years, and then it renews for another 3 years. Okay, now if you have 3 certifications, you don't have to do that for all 3 certifications. So like I have the A+, Network Plus, and the Security Plus. So if I renew my Security Plus, all of them renew. Just like if you get the A+ and then you get the Security Plus, it renews your A+. If you get the A+ and then the Network Plus, it renews the A+. If you get the A+ and then the Security Plus and then the Network Plus, it doesn't renew anything. Because the Network Plus is a lower certification than the Security Plus. So try to get them all in order, because mine didn't reset when I got the Network Plus. I knew it wouldn't reset, but I thought I'd get some sort of credit for it.
Yeah.
I didn't get any credit for it, so I was a little bummed. I managed to get all my CIT credits before it expired this year, so I was quite happy. But yeah, it was kind of questionable for a moment there. But gotta have them. I think that was one of the reasons I got hired at Mid-Dell Technology Center, was because of the applicants. I had A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, and that's what they were looking for. I have a lot of students who I'm like, you need to get your certifications, and they're like, I didn't get my certifications when I went through this program.
I think it's hard because I'm like thinking about right now. I already graduated next semester. I'm like, so when do I have time to get my certs, basically?
It's best to try to get your certs when you're taking that class. So like when you're taking the computer repair class or whatever it's called here, I never can remember. So when you take that class, get on itpro.tv and you do that practice test as you go. Because if you don't, let me tell you, it's harder. I waited like 4 or 5 years and then went and did it.
Yep.
Everything had changed. It was totally different. It's kind of like Network Plus. Everything had changed. They had fiber optic on there. Fiber optic wasn't even taught when I went through the program.
What is that?
So, I mean, I knew what it was. It's just I didn't know the difference. I mean, they had all these, there's like a dozen different adapters for it. It's like there's an ST and an LP, or no, it's LC, because we nicknamed it Little Connector. And then there's like SC and FC, and I mean, there's all sorts of different ones. And we came up with nicknames for them, like SC is Square Connector, and it's not really what it stands for, but that's what we called it, just to help us remember. Because I teach all that over at Mid-Dell. And so we were coming up with little nicknames to help us remember them all. Yes?
What we did for SE and ST, like when I was working in Japan, was the circle ones were stick and twist, and then the square connectors or block ones were stick and click.
Huh.
I was like, because
Okay.
actually when they were telling me that, I thought literally what I thought that what the acronym was for it, and it was just worse. I'm like, no, that wasn't what it was, but hey, it
I
worked.
gotta remember that, because that's a good one. So the square one is stick and click, and the other one is stick and twist.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta remember that. But yeah, I mean, it was confusing because I was like, I don't know. And Ken was like, oh, you don't need to study for the new test. You're gonna be fine. Yeah, no, I totally bombed it. I was like, I didn't even recognize any of that stuff that was on there. And so I had to get on itpro.tv. No, actually, he didn't have the new one. I tried to get him to get the new one. I went out and bought a book on the new one just so I could study for the new test. And passed it, thankfully.
I can't even remember her name. I was just talking. She graduated last semester, not the summer, but and she can't get a job because
Get her certifications.
she doesn't have experience and she doesn't have anything. So she's
See, that's why I like our
studying
program at
Security
Mid-Dell
Plus
Technology
right
Center. So at Mid-Dell, we do a lot of hands-on, okay? Y'all get hands-on here, but we get more. And I got an email today, and they want us to do an internship. There is a new company coming to town over on 29th Street, right next door to our biz center, and they asked if we had any people, any programs that did like computer repair and networking and stuff like that, because they're they need to set it up. They need someone to image 200 computers. They need them to run all the wires for all 200 computers and then set up the server rack and all that. And they're like, do you think you'd be interested? I'm like, hell yeah. Because I've got adult students who don't want to complete both years. Well, what do you do if they don't want to complete both years? I need them working in the field, because if they just drop out, that counts against me. So I'm like, I'm all for this. I'm going to set up my adult students. I can't really do it at the high school too well because they wouldn't be able to get out of class to do the internship. But do my adult students. I mean, there's not a lot of adult students, but that would be awesome for them. So, but anyway, I've been telling my students over at Mid-Dell, it's like, you need to get your certifications. And those high school students, they just don't seem to get it. They don't understand, and they don't seem to care. So when I get to this, I'm gonna be emphasizing it. But I mean, how many in here have a certification? Okay, what certification do you have?
A plus and N plus.
Okay, you? Didn't you raise your hand? No? You raised your hand, I know that.
CAS, Security Plus,
Okay. So which one what did you get first?
Security Plus.
And
And
then,
I got that plus, and then I got CAS.
so was the CAS part? See, I want to do, I'm doing them in weird orders. So I want to do the Linux. And I'm going to do cloud, just because Ken says everybody needs cloud. So I'm going to do cloud. And then I think I'm going to try to do that new cybersecurity one that they've got, just because I think it'd be interesting to try to do the cybersecurity. And then I want to get away from those, and I want to do ethical hacker. And then I'll go back and I'll do the CASP, and then I'm going to try for CISSP. But that's the order that I plan to try for. My Linux is coming up soon, and I'm not nearly ready. But I get 2 free ones working here, so that works. Technically, I should get them at mid-Dell too, but I never asked for them just because it's pain there. Who else? Anybody else raise their hand saying they had certifications?
I mean, I got a 901, half a D plus.
Not quite an A plus yet, though. So when are you taking your 902?
Whenever I have the time, I suppose.
Okay, how long is that going to be?
How long
I'm
does it
asking
take?
because I think that they're renewing it in January, and so you really want to take the second test before January. Because I don't know how that plays out if you have one as a 901 and then they roll over to something else. I don't know how that would play out because I got fortunate that I took mine a year apart and they were both on the same test. So I don't know how that would work.
From what I remember our manager telling us, if they change it like that, you have to take the first one again.
Yeah, so you might want to take it before January. And I don't have a definite date because they said sometime in January is what when CompTIA had posted that they expect to have the new one ready. Yes.
I almost said that's security.
Okay. Cool. So the rest of you are working on certifications? Y'all know we have something called itpro.tv that you can watch videos if you want, and then they have practice tests where you can go through. It's not the same as the actual test, but if you understand the concepts that it has for the questions and answers, and you look at all of the reasons why it's right and why it's wrong, you should be fine. So, highly recommend you getting a certification, just because it's going to where more and more are requiring certifications to even get a job. You can't even get a job at Tinker unless you have Security Plus. Dell will hire you without a certification as long as you have soft skills. What are soft skills? No. Customer service. Showing up on time, properly dressed, hygiene, knowing how to talk to people. Yes.
The higher up one, like the higher tier one, does require A1 stuff. But the basic, like call center is, wire one. But then that stuff, that's like the people that call that have subscriptions and stuff. That one you need A+.
All I know is that people who have a college degree and people who go to technology centers get paid more than people off the street. So if you're interested in a job at Dell, that's just a little tidbit.
I've heard negative things about
The thing is that I worked at Dell and it was a horrible experience for me, but I was a contractor working on the Boeing contract and it was miserable. I hated it. I hated every moment of it. Well, not every moment of it because I was workload manager, so that was kind of cool. But I was mad because they lied to us the entire time. But if you actually get on at Dell and not as a contractor, they'll pay for your certifications. So go in there, get a year's worth of experience, get some certifications under your belt, and then apply out to other companies. Because a lot of people's problem is that they're either changing their degree field when they come to college or when they go to technology center. And so they don't have that experience in the field working in IT. And that's the hard part, is getting your foot in the door somewhere so you can get some experience so that you can move up. So if you do that, you've got a year's worth of experience. You can get on another job easier. So just don't be afraid to take less money somewhere if you can get your foot in the door somewhere, because you don't have to stay there forever. You just have to stay long enough to get some IT experience, work your butt off to prove to them that you're an excellent employee, and then move on somewhere else to where you can get paid better. Yeah, you just want to make a good impression, because then they'll give you a good review when you go somewhere else. At least they should. Profession requires specialized knowledge and a long and intensive academic preparation. Possesses advanced training and experience. Exercise discretion and judgment in their work. Work is not standardized. So this is going to be more like the people who they're not straight off the street, straight out of high school, jumping into a degree field or jumping into a profession or job, whatever. I mean, it could be someone from a technology center jumping straight into it, because one of the girls that I went to the doctor yesterday, and the nurse, straight out of high school. So how'd she get a job working as a nurse straight out of high school? Anyone want to venture a guess?
She probably did the dual thing of going to college and high school at the same time.
She went to Midville Technology Center, got a nursing certificate. And a lot of kids are doing that. They're taking advantage of the technology centers. It's like our technology center has the second lowest in the state adult enrollment. So what does that mean?
High school.
It's all high school. They told me this year that they weren't going to allow me to have all high school in my class because nobody's dropping, and they thought that more people would drop. They said mine was the only program where nobody dropped, and they thought people would drop. And I have a wait list, and they want the adults in there because the adults are actually paying. The high school is not. They're not used to my program having, one, a wait list, and two, nobody dropping. So they said I needed to stop doing such a good job. And I'm like, okay, that makes no sense right there. It's funny because I actually had two who wanted to drop at the beginning, and I was like, okay.
And you convinced them not to?
No, actually, I said, that is your choice. I was like, well, what do you want to do? He's like, well, I don't know. I was like, okay. So obviously you were interested in computers, or you would not have signed up for this class in the first place. I was like, I have no problem with you dropping, because I have a wait list for this class, and if you drop, they're going to fill it instantly. I was like, so if you're going to drop, please do it within the first 2 weeks so they can fill your spot. That was my pep talk to the kid, and he stayed, and he sits in the front row, and he is like one of the first ones to turn in his work. So, I mean, I honestly thought that he would drop based on my little pep talk there, and he didn't. I mean, I cared, but then again, I don't want someone in my class that doesn't want to be there. Because if they don't want to be there, they're not going to do the work. It's kind of like here. Y'all are here because you have to be. The only reason I'm doing an in-class class is because the first semester I was told, I taught this class because Ken was like, I really need you to teach this class. I was like, oh my gosh, I hated ethics when I took ethics. I hated ethics. It was the boringest, dullest class I think I took in my entire college career. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So my first semester doing it, I was like, ooh, these discussion questions are awesome. This would be really fun if we were in class and we could talk about these. And Ken's like, well, we could do that. I was like, yeah, but I don't want to teach 2 nights a week. He's like, oh, you can do it as a hybrid and just do it 1 night a week. So the only reason we are here tonight is because I wanted to be able to do discussion questions in class. It's the only reason. Anyway, IT workers, legal perspective, IT workers are not recognized as professionals as they are not licensed by the state or federal government and are not liable for malpractice, which I guess is good for us. If we screw up someone's computer, they can't sue us.
Not overtime, exactly.
It depends on where you work.
I think they just started changing a lot of that.
Because as a contractor, we didn't get overtime. Now, they required some of them, especially the ones that were on file servers, to stay if something broke, but then they would let them not come in the next day. That's why I didn't want file servers, even though we paid a lot more. I was like, yeah, no. I have a family. I didn't want to work weird hours. These little high school kids, like Cameron, because that's the person who took that position, they didn't have a family, so for them to stay until 10, 11 p.m., it's not that big of a deal. Plus, he enjoyed the day off the next day. So, professional relationships IT must manage. You can see all that. A lot of different people. What is software piracy?
No,
Is it-
actually, it's uploading. Downloading is not piracy. When you share your stuff legally, you can download it if you want. It's just that when you take your stuff and you put it up there, that's the piracy.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the case, because if you download something, it doesn't matter if you didn't share it. If you download something and you didn't pay for it, it's illegal, and they're cracking down on it. Okay, I probably shouldn't say this since we're recording it, but Ken actually used to do that. He used to actually have a subscription through one, and then of course, he had like the proxy ID IP in there, so it didn't route back to our house, and you couldn't really track it. And he stopped doing it because he was telling all of his students that they shouldn't do that when they go to Tulsa, and he felt like that was like double standard, and that he shouldn't do it. So he stopped. I kind of missed it, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad he wasn't doing it because I was always scared he was going to get caught. But Why would it be wrong for you to download it?
Because it's a paid service and it's taking away profits from the person who published it.
Correct. So what if it's a struggling artist? I mean, I know that there's some you're like, oh my gosh, they make millions every year, so what difference does it make? But what if it's someone who legitimately, I mean, is a struggling artist, and you're taking money from their mouth by downloading that music instead of... When I worked at Tinker, I had certain coworkers who would go through, when they were on someone else's computer, if they saw music, they would download it to their computer so that they could have the music. He had, I don't know how many gigs of music when he left. Of course, I think that's why he left, was because he was downloading the music. And back then you couldn't put the flash drives in, or you weren't supposed to put them in. He kept putting it in to copy the music off. So. Do what?
We got a lot of music for free, though.
He did get a lot of music for free, but you know, is it really worth your job? Huh?
I would probably have to get stuff you care about.
Yeah, because he was the one that trained me, and so I did it for a couple computers, and I was like, you know, I never listened to music at work. I don't. I was never in the office to listen to music at work. So to me, I was like, I just wound up deleting it because I was like, I never listened to it. I don't need it at home because we already have a ton of music that I don't listen to at home. So we deleted it. But plus, I didn't want to have to mess with trying to get it off my drive here, because you have to copy it onto CDs and then take it home, and that was another big hassle that I don't want to mess with. Okay, trade secret information that is of economic value that has required effort or cost to develop. So if you create something on your work computer, who does it belong to?
Your company,
It belongs to your company. Why?
because you're doing it on their time, their computer.
Yeah. So when I took over for this position that I'm at Middale Technology Center, what do you think I came to? You think that he left me all of his files from all the years that he had been there? No, he re-imaged all the computers. Left me with nothing. And this coming from a guy who said, I'll help you whenever you need it, just let me know. And I'm sitting here going, it would have been nice if you hadn't re-imaged the computer and taken all of the information off of the computer. Do what?
Probably like I remember you used to have like a lot of medals from events. Actually, those were cool.
Maybe he didn't want you to see all the stuff that he downloaded illegally.
Ken said he probably had something on his computer he didn't want me seeing.
Probably.
I don't know. Personally, it would have just been easier if you just picked through it and said, okay, she's going to need this, she's going to need this, copy them all over into one section, and then you can delete everything else. But nope, didn't do that. Okay, so what is whistleblowing? Tattling?
Informing that people are breaking rules.
Breaking rules, breaking laws, stealing money,
Correct.
deceiving the public. So,
Deceiving the government.
if you, how many of y'all have gone through and looked at all the homework that you have assigned for this semester? Nobody? Okay.
What's the question?
How many of you have gone through and looked at all the homework that I assigned for this semester?
I don't see any on people actually. If that's a content, you make it public? The other day there was just kind of.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
I didn't see a whole lot on there, actually. I tried to schedule out stuff, but
okay, so chapter 2, there's homework. Chapter 3, homework. Chapter everywhere is homework. There's even Enron and whistleblowing. So whistleblowing is the one we're going to look at right now. Because this is a homework assignment. I was trying to come up with one, and I finally came up with one like a semester or two ago. I don't think they liked it too much. So you have to write me a paper, and then you have to prepare a presentation, and then you have to deliver said presentation. Now, we only set aside one night for presentations. And everybody was supposed to keep it at like 5 to 10 minutes, so we had time. Of course, this is a little bit bigger group than my last class. We ran out of time. We still had like 3 people. I mean, we had what, maybe 8 or 9 people in the class. I think it was 9 people in the class. We still had 3 people left over at the end of the hour, the class period. Did not get through all the presentations. So, if we don't get to your presentation, just be prepared to present. If we don't get to it, then you have to record it and submit it. But which is what the online people will do. But these are the different companies that you can pick from. I did have people email me and say, hey, can I do it from this company instead? And I am okay with that. Just make sure you email me and say, hey, is this okay, before you just run off and do it. And the reason you want to do that is, does anybody know what Silkwood is? Yep. Okay. So he actually grew up in that town. Like, I guess it was the town right next door. And so he knew all about it. He'd driven past that area all the time. And so he wanted to do it on Silkwood. It wasn't really IT related, but it was still on whistleblowing. And so he actually went out to where the accident was, and he had pictures and everything that he presented, plus, all the news articles. Yeah, that's precisely it. And it was an excellent presentation. So if you want to do something like that, if there's something that you know about that is like kind of close to you or you're really interested in, I'm perfectly okay with that. Just let me know. Because I want this one to be fun. Just because you can't do Enron though. Because we're going over Enron in the first half of the semester. But pretty much anything else, I'm okay with. And I actually would like different companies, because after hearing everybody else talk about the same companies over and over again, it gets old. So, but I mean, if you do it, that's perfectly fine. I haven't had the time to go out and make a better list. So, anyway. But that's what y'all get to do later in the semester. I do give you 2 weeks to work on it. So, I mean, it's not like, I guess we could do 2 weeks on presentations. The only reason I don't do that is because I want you to have that extra time to work on it, just to make sure you do good research. And I don't know why the title was that way. Okay, so we have a discussion. You're caught in the middle of a dilemma. You have been subpoenaed to be a witness in a work-related sexual harassment case involving your boss and your coworker. On many occasions, you heard your boss make statements to this employee that could be interpreted as sexual advancements. Your boss has made it clear that he will make things difficult for you if you testify in favor of the employee. You could choose to testify in a manner that would make it appear that your boss was not serious and that the employee was overreacting. On the other hand, it was clear to you that the boss was not joking with the employee and that he was harassing her. What kind of repercussions could there be if you testify in favor of the coworker? Would you be willing to risk those repercussions? And does it really matter if the case is dismissed because of your testimony? Anybody want to volunteer their opinions?
Can you get the boss fired?
Maybe if the case goes through.
Of harassment, but he'd probably get a slap on his wrist.
Can you make a deal with the boss and say, hey, I'll testify in your favor?
I mean, if you,
Okay, this is an ethics class. Is that really ethical?
I mean, if you know that the boss,
Is it really ethical?
if you know that your boss was obviously not joking, then saying so would be perjury.
Okay, so I have to go back to the something here. Do you have a girlfriend or a wife?
Yeah.
Okay, what would you do if it was your girlfriend or your wife that was experiencing the harassment?
Okay.
Would it still be okay with you?
No, but it's not. You see? So it's like, they're like, I mean, what can you do? But that's fine in your favor.
So because it's not your wife or your girlfriend, you're okay with it?
I mean, it's like not like morally, but in the end, I mean, I wouldn't be. I mean, I would honestly ask him. I honestly would.
Well, if you're reported that, that's evidence. Think about that.
Well, then I'm fired. So.
Okay, anybody else?
Probably not really. If you ask that question and report it with the intention of showing it too, then, I mean, you're just taking him digging deeper graves with.
I mean, it seems like if you've gotten past the EEOC, because anytime you go through this, you have to go through the EEOC first, and then after it goes through the EEOC, then it has to go to another court of arbitration. If you finally make it to court, at that point, it seems like you're really endangering yourself. I mean, whether or not you testify in favor of your boss or in favor of the employee, you're endangering yourself if you start perjuring yourself. I mean, it seems like the best thing to do, try to minimize the amount that, you expose yourself to lying to a court, which is a fairly serious thing, judges don't have a sense of humor about that shit. So.
Nope. And if they call somebody else to be a witness and they testify something totally different than what you testified, they're going to really look at that and go, I think this guy perjured himself. And that's going to really ruin your reputation because people are going to go back and they're going to be like, I can't trust him because he perjured himself. We have it on record.
And yeah, in Oklahoma, it's a one-party state. They being recorded. And in fact, most Fortune 500 companies record every single phone call that comes in and every call that goes out. And it's not just sexual harassment, it's insider trading. So that they see you doing, or exact rules of insider trading. But that's why they record all their VoIP calls, if you want to do insider trading with a cell phone. But, there are ways you can get caught fairly easily doing that shit. It seems like the best thing to do is try to minimize the amount that, expose yourself and let the chips fall where they may. You can't save the world. So, try and do what's best for yourself and what you can live with and move on.
Anybody else? People don't want to stick up for the little guy.
I guess I would be willing to testify, and then, like I think somebody in here said, he might not even get fired if he's the big boss or whatever. So obviously, once you decide to stand up for your moral values, then might as well sell him for another job.
One other thing I'd like to say though, is he haven't had anything about that. The doctor said that the voluntary EO piece, if it's already in court, it's already gone through that entire process. You already know what's going on. You've already given all that information.
A lot of stuff's on the record already at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really change. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to change it. Say it's just one of those things like throw your.
There's no way you testify. You don't testify in favor of your coworker.
It seems kind of obtuse of the boss to try to say that he's going to retaliate against you at that point. The boss is screwed, whether he's innocent or not.
Yeah.
He's fired. And really,
Unless he's the owner of the company and then he can be fired.
I don't know if it's a publicly traded company or a privately held firm. All of that stuff matters. But a publicly traded company, he's gone, and you're probably gone too. If the first time they can figure out a reason to get rid of you, just to be done with the whole thing. My experience is best not to stick your head out too far.
I'd say nothing. I'd be like, you were subpoenaed, and you gotta go. Yeah.
Except when you've already told what happened and you're not even thinking about repercussions because the investigation.
Yep.
And the point is, if there are repercussions, you keep track of everything, and then you get to sue the company or file a complaint, and then you get taken care of. So, you can prove that, hey, I'm being
Who
harassed.
retaliated against you again?
Right. So now you sue them, and then you don't have to work anymore.
And then you get sued
At least not
twice.
for a little while. Okay, ethical issues between IT workers and clients, conflict of interest. What would be a conflict of interest?
Repairing a machine or securing a machine versus keeping their data.
Okay,
Kickbacks from a vendor.
okay. So when I worked for Boeing, I wasn't allowed to accept gifts. When I worked for Dell for Boeing, I wasn't allowed to accept gifts for Boeing because it was a conflict of interest. It's kind of like when I worked at Tinker, I wasn't allowed to accept gifts from my department because I worked for the contract field team who decided contracts, and I was a contractor. Now, I still got to participate in the Christmas parties, but I brought something, but I tried to give one of them a bottle of wine for their birthday, and they said that they could not accept it because it could be seen as a kickback. Even though they didn't cover our contract, they said that because I was a contractor, they could not accept it. So he had to pay me back for the wine. It's just that he couldn't buy it on base, and I got it for like half the price that it was at the liquor store he went to, so I just bought it for him.
That's why for 6 months after you left that job, you weren't allowed to work for me as a those companies. Not in any of the contract areas of those companies. Because if you had any control over any contract,
It could be foreseen as
you can go work for
something-
this company, but you can't work with any of the contracts that were approved or whatnot. Until
Yeah,
about
it's kinda
6 months.
In my department, I was not allowed to be in the department by myself. Now, they didn't really hold to that, but most of the contractors they did. It's just that yes, they had to be physically present if I was in the room. Because I could go through any of the documents that they had sitting out at their desks, and they had a lot of them. So I was not allowed to be in the department. I was not allowed to be in there when they were not in there. Now, they let me be in there when they were not in there, because by that point they trusted me. But in the beginning, when I first started over there, I could not. If they left, I had to leave. And I was perfectly okay with that, because sometimes that meant I got to go home early, which meant I went across the base to my alternate location, and they always said it to me, kind of like winking, alternate location. I was like, okay, just call me if you need me. I'll be around, and I'd go home. And they knew I went home. I mean, that's why they were doing the little winking bit, and it was good, because I was on call. If they needed me, they called, and sometimes they called at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, which was a little annoying, but it was okay. Of course, they did get onto that one person who called. She had worked for me at another place before I worked at Tinker, and so she felt like she could call me any hour of the day and night, and I was okay with that, except that her bosses were not. So when we were talking, and they overheard us talking about her calling, and they were like, "Whoa, what? No," and so they kind of put a stop to that. But I didn't care.
Contractors was right down that. As
Yeah,
time on
because
the job.
exactly.
A phone call was work
But to
time.
me, they let me go home early enough that I didn't care, because
But
that
on
was like the
paper, it
cushiest
didn't
job
look
that
that
I ever had. Like, I could take a long lunch, and it wasn't a big deal because I was on call. They knew they could call me and reach me, so I kind of missed that, because now my lunch is at 10:30 and it's over like at 11:10.
High school's lunch is weird. Why is it at 10:30 in the morning?
There's no place open. Okay, there's only a couple places open at 10:30 in the morning.
It's still breakfast time for a lot of restaurants.
It starts.
The school, yeah, we have to be there at 7:30. School starts at 7:45. Yeah. Fraud, obtaining goods and services or property through deception or trickery. I think we all know what that is. Misrepresentation, misstatement or incomplete statement of a material fact. Y'all know what all these are, don't you? Breach of contract, not meeting the terms of your contract, material breach of contract, I can't even talk. Party fails to perform certain obligations, thereby impairing or destroying the essence of the contract. Conflict. Describe a situation in where there can be a conflict of interest between an IT worker's self-interest and the interests of a client. How should this potential conflict be addressed? Anybody want to take a stab at that one?
Client wants you to do something that probably wouldn't be safe for you to do.
Okay. Or is not outlined in your contract. So like at Tinker, we're contractors, or we were contractors, all IT. And sometimes they would ask us to do something that was not in our contract. Now, if you're dedicated support, that's fine. You could do it. But if you were not dedicated support, do you do that? Really depends on the people, because certain groups I would do it anyway. But it just depends. So it could be a conflict of interest, because I supported a group that happened to have been working with my dad when my dad used to work out of Tinker, and so I kind of they got special treatment, and when they needed something, I moved them up to the top of the list, which technically probably was not the best thing to do.
But in doing
But
this,
they fed me homemade loaf
you're
here.
also trying to think how to word that. By doing that extra work that's not in your contract, yes,
They're not paying for it though.
you're not helping, and you're now messing up your own job, your own pay,
Because they're not
and the
paying for it.
company's pay.
Mhm.
So it's because it's not bidded, and then it doesn't show up like, hey, we need this, so you can actually lose a contract
Mhm.
Because like, oh yeah, we can do all this stuff without you.
Mhm.
But on the side, I've been doing all this stuff. But it wasn't contracted.
It's kind of like when I started doing my dedicated support position. They're like, okay, well, we need you to be, hold on, I got to think of the name. I had to be software license manager. I had to be equipment custodian. And there was one other position that I had to be because they had to have an alternative and they didn't have anybody else that could do it. And by alternative, that means I did the job, but they were the one that puts their name on it whenever I was done. And that's because it was a small department and they didn't have the people. And so I actually called my boss and I said, okay, they're telling me I have to go to this class and I have to sign up. I have to be, be all these different things. And they're like, well, it's not in your contract. Let me check. And so they actually had to go and they had to check. And then they actually wrote it into the contract. Yeah.
Because now you're providing more.
Yeah.
They can also charge more, but as I say,
They didn't then, but when the contract renewed, they were going to.
Oh,
but
yeah.
then again, we lost the contract, so it didn't matter anyway. So
it's all.
I jumped ship before we lost the contract, so I got out just in the nick of time. I think Kent, the guy that was sitting here, he jumped ship too, because the reason they didn't want our company is because they said we were making too much. And so all the people that I worked with are pretty much all gone now. And they've got all new people. So is that a good thing for a company to do? Why? They lose all the experience. Guess how much of a knowledge base Tinker has for the IT department? When I first started, the software we were using, we could go back through all the previous tickets and we could look them up and see what was done to resolve things. They upgraded when we went to AFNet. We could no longer search through the tickets, so you had no knowledge base. Huh?
Upgrade.
Yeah, well, upgrade. AFNet was supposed to be so all bases are on the same domain. So you could go to any base with your company laptop and be on the network. Because otherwise they had to issue you a computer when you went there, or take your computer off of your domain and put it on their domain, just so that they could work on just so that you could be on the network. It was a hassle. So it's actually better, but at the same time, there's a lot of drawbacks to it.
They could have taken it better.
Yeah. Well, when they went to AFNet, they were told, you need to make this change, this change, this change. You need to upgrade all of this stuff before you go to AFNet. Guess what the government did? Rolled out AFNet. Didn't make any of the changes. So every day they had to reset the servers for us because there were so many people connecting that it would shut everything down. You'd be at a standstill until they got it back up. So anyway, that was kind of off topic for the conflict here. I guess back then I was labeling them, kind of what it was about instead of discussion question. But it's our discussion question. But y'all kind of get the gist of it, don't you? Embellishment. How do you distinguish between a misrepresentation and embellishment of one's professional accomplishments on a resume?
Knowledge, I'd say. So, like, if they said if they knew, like, how to, like, manage Linux machines, and then you put them right in front of the Linux machine, and they don't know what to do, then they completely made that complete lie. Meanwhile, if they try and actually do it, and they say, they don't do it that very well, then I guess that's kind of misrepresentation.
So maybe embellishment would be more like they know how to do it, but they say that they're an expert, and they're not an expert. Misrepresentation might be saying that they're good with Linux and they don't know Linux at all.
Saying you have a degree that you don't.
Yeah.
Certain.
Saying on you're saying that I have a certification, but you didn't actually pass the certification. Some of my students, whenever we were making resumes, I said, okay, these are some of the examples that you could put, and I had like all of the certifications listed. They left the certifications there. I was like, you can't leave these there. They're like, why? I was like, because you don't have the certifications. You can't list certifications on your resume that you don't have. That would be misrepresentation. You can't put it on there. It's kind of like if you pass the 901 and you put on your resume, I have an A+ certification. You don't have an A+ certification. You don't have an A+ certification until they send you that email with that sort of, well, I mean, you have the sheet saying that you passed, you technically did, but they'll actually send you something so that you have the little certificate that you can show. I have this. So, anybody else? Comments? Questions? Yes.
We had one employee that years ago we hired on. It even went to the extent of printing out, where taking a picture of a CompTIA cert, put her name on it, and then using that as proof of her certification.
See, now they have this little code on there
Yeah,
so that you can actually look it up and you can see the actual cert, and then it would show that it wasn't hers.
Yeah, that's how she got caught.
That's
They
a
went
lot of
verify
work.
that.
I mean, she's just that amount of work you could just done.
Not if she just really had no clue about any of the material. She
Yeah,
probably
okay,
couldn't.
yeah, it just seems like,
It's crazy the stuff that some people think that they can get away with, though. Anybody else? Please provide an example of an embellishment that would not be considered a misrepresentation. Ethical issues, bribery, providing money, property, or favors to someone in business or government in order to obtain a business advantage. Precisely why they wouldn't accept a bottle of wine, because they were afraid that it would be construed as bribery. It wasn't bribery. It was a birthday present. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act makes it a crime to bribe a foreign official, a foreign political party official, or a candidate for a foreign political office. So why would that be necessary? Do you know every law that's in place is there because something happened to make them have to make a law?
Just like those like really silly signs you see around.
Which really silly signs? There's a lot of really silly signs.
I can't think of an example.
Kind of reminds me of course, this is a little off topic, but you know, like in was it Spain or was it France? France. They have public urinals now. Literally.
San Francisco too.
Actually, on the street, public, not in a like.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
like a phone booth, except it's either headed, it's to prevent people from shooting up and then.
Okay. That's a little different in France. I mean, it's just an open
It looks
urinal.
like a mailbox
It's
that
an
you
open-
stand next to, and yeah.
And the reason they did that is to combat people peeing on all the buildings, because so many people pee outside because they'll get drunk and they just. I guess it's not even necessarily they just get drunk and they just pee everywhere, but I guess they have a real problem with it. So now they have urinals along the street, so you can just stop and pee. Of course, then some people say that's discrimination because the women don't have anywhere that they can go, and it's like can't please anybody.
Yeah, the testing, and it's got straw in it. It's got to be
Yep,
changed.
and
in a
it's got
couple
some
weeks.
plants that I guess it composts and it
They
feeds.
put straw in there, and then they come pick up and replace the straw.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah.
And it's right next to the river, so you can, while you're peeing, you can stare at the river.
I did not know that part.
Yeah.
All I know is I read the article and I was like, oh my gosh, what is our world coming to? I mean, because when we were in Spain, I mean, they didn't even have toilets. I mean, the toilets were just like, it wasn't just a hole in the ground, but it was like just the toilet bowl. There was no seat, no cover, no nothing on it. So 'cause you don't sit, you squat. You walk up and down those stairs often enough in Spain, it's hard to squat. It was really, really rough. I'm sorry, but it was really rough when we were in Spain. Not only that, but you had to pay for the restrooms. We have it really good here. You can stop at the gas station and go to the
You used to have
restroom,
to pay
and it's
here.
really
Yeah,
okay.
one
Well, you
time
can
they
stop in the restroom and go to the restroom, and it's free.
Watch all
most
the movies.
places.
You had to have a nickel to go use the toilet.
It was 25 cents for some of them. Some of them wanted more.
Yeah.
Was
In the
it
United
Which-
States, you had several.
was it not just
It was
a lot
bad.
of times you get your
No, it was especially the worst one was at the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You had to go through. Okay, it was one of those where it rotates. You know, like when you're going into the zoo and you have to walk through. Yeah, turnstile. You had to walk through one of those, and you had to put like it was $1 there. You had to put your little euro, not dollar, your €1 in there before it would turn, so that you could get in to go to the restroom. And it was a long line for the restroom. And you would think if they're charging that much for the restrooms, it would be damn spotless. It wasn't spotless. It wasn't even really air conditioned well enough. But it was what it is. I had to go to the restroom, and our bus wasn't leaving for another hour. So,
All
you know.
Middle-East, yeah, because they all squat. So there is no Western toilet of sitting down.
Yeah.
You've
No.
got, it's in
Well,
the
there was at the
front.
Leaning Tower of Pisa. That one was the exception, but that one cost a lot more because the others you could just like leave like just a small coin or something, and they wouldn't. If you tried to leave without it, that little old lady would come running after you because they had someone in there cleaning the restroom like all day, I guess, and they didn't like that. And we were like, what? Because it was like our first day there. We were like, what in the world? I don't. Yeah, we learned very quickly. You leave tips. So.
So like they have the porcelain toilet, but it's level with the floor, and then it goes in, and you either pee or poop in it.
Yeah.
But you squat, and then it's got little ridges on the
The
side.
problem is that we did so much walking, and like Positano, which is the one where the lady yelled at us. I mean, it was like straight down, and then you had to climb straight back up. Down wasn't too terribly bad, well it was, and that was only because we had already done Rome. We'd already done Leaning Tower of Pisa, so that means we went all the way up to the top of Leaning Tower of Pisa. We went to the top of the Basilica, which was rougher than the Leaning Tower of Pisa because it's like you're slanted like this walking up there the entire way. Yeah, we were exhausted.
So Iraq and Afghanistan was funny because you had porta-johns, which were Middle Eastern porta-johns, and then you had the Western porta-johns. But when it was rainy season, you could go in there and you would see footprints sitting on both sides of the toilet because someone climbed up on there and they squatted. So yeah, so you had footprints hanging out on the sides, or they totally missed, but yeah. So but yeah, you could walk in and it's like, oh my God, really?
So differences. Bribes are made in secret as they are neither legally or morally acceptable, are often made indirectly through a third party. Encourage an obligation for the recipient to act favorably toward the donor. Whereas a gift are made openly and publicly as a gesture of friendship and goodwill. Mine was definitely openly and publicly. Are made directly from a donor to a recipient. Oh yeah, I gave it directly to Scott. Come with no expectation of future favor or for the donor. So see, it was a gift. And technically it was under $20 because I got it from the class 6. So, I mean, it was acceptable. So, but he still wouldn't take it because he was worried that they would think bad. So.
It's better to go.
Yeah,
Saves us
and I
time.
understood. It was fine. Just trying to do a favor for a friend. My daughter adored him. He was like 60, and he did not look 60. I mean, he was like, he acted like he was 20. He went out partying every night, dancing, and yeah, it was crazy. Professionals owe each other adherence to their professional code of conduct. Ethical problems among IT. Resume inflation. Have y'all ever seen resume inflation? Really? Give me an example. Whoever said,
They had a lot more information on there than actually people.
okay. Has anybody ever asked you to submit a resume when you knew they were blatantly lying on their resume? No? Nobody's ever asked you to submit a resume to your employer or whatever to give a good, recommendation? Okay. I guess I experience it because we get a lot of resumes, people saying, hey, we want a job, can you pass it on, to someone at Tinker? And every time Ken would send me one, I'd be like, okay, do you know this student? And he'd be like, yes. I was like, okay, tell me about this student. Is this a good student? Because I didn't want to be passing along a resume for someone I didn't know. I didn't know if they were lying. Because I know that when I worked at Dell, I had a lot of people who were like, ooh, can you pass on my resume? And I was like, sure. And I passed it on and be like, don't hire this person. No, I did, seriously. Because one of them was, hopefully they never listen to this video. He did meth. He did meth. And he was clean for a little while and then he'd be on meth. Because so I was like, I don't want that at Tinker because that would be bad. Not only that, but if they found out later that, this was someone who did meth, and that would look bad. and then they'd never hire someone that I recommended, and I didn't want that. So there was that one, and then there was another one who wound up getting hired anyway, but I didn't put his name in because they moved him to nights because he would never do his job. And so then we had someone on nights that never did his job, and the only time that someone could call was at night on some of those work orders. And so they never got worked because there was nobody on nights working. And we'd complain, and they'd be like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. And literally, he would sit there and watch movies instead of doing work. And they just let him. And so then when he got hired at Tinker, I was like, oh, hell no.
The math junkie.
No, this was a different guy. This.
Seems like a math junkie. Great.
Oh, yeah, he probably would have been great for night shifts. I really liked the guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really liked him, but I didn't want to put my name on the line to get him hired. And there was another guy who wanted me to put his name in that couldn't handle Dell's IT desk. So why would I want to put his name in for Tinker's IT desk? I didn't. So he wound up getting a job with the cleaning crew at
So what
Tinker.
exactly would you do like at Dell as an IT person? Like you said, it'd be a good place to get your foot in the door. What exactly your responsibilities do you have?
Taking phone calls. They put you through like 3 months of training. The training that we had nothing to do with the job that we did, but that's because I was on a Boeing contract. Do not get a job at Dell working for Apex. That is my one piece of advice. Do not get a job at Dell working for Apex if you can avoid it. If you are desperate, then do it. But it's hard to get on at Dell once you're on an Apex. Because you're a contractor and they don't want to poach. So they generally won't hire you once you're on with Apex. So if you can avoid getting on with Apex and go straight on with Dell, I would highly recommend it. So.
And do you have to sign a non-compete clause?
When you leave Dell? Or
Well, no,
when you get
say
hired
you're
on
doing
Dell?
the Boeing, so when you leave there, some companies will do the whole
We
thing
probably
non-compete, so you
did.
can't leave this contract and go directly to them. You have
Yeah,
to
we
wait
probably
3 to
did,
6
but I
months.
don't remember.
So that's all.
And I considered going to Boeing because I loved Boeing. Boeing was awesome. Because I actually got to go and do training directly at Boeing, and because they were fixing to roll out a new system or something, and so certain ones of us got to go, and I happen to be a workload manager, so I was chosen. So I actually got to go, and I got to know all the people there really well. And so when Ken and I got married, they actually gave me a present, and when I graduated with my bachelor's, they gave me a present. And they told me I wasn't allowed to tell anybody because it could be construed as bribery or something, and so I wasn't allowed to. I couldn't tell anybody at work that I got it. I mean,
So now
I was
you're
like,
recording.
yeah, well, I don't work there. I don't work at any of them anymore, and I don't keep in touch with anybody that I worked with. I did for a while because she was from Italy, the one I talked to the most. She was just my contact, so I just talked to her a lot. But she was from Italy, and so when Ken and I did our honeymoon in Italy, we actually didn't go quite close to where she grew up, but we went close, and so I sent her all my pictures, and it was cool. So. Members of people expect you to provide significant benefit or to provide significant benefits, not cause harm through their actions. Code of ethics. There's usually a code of ethics everywhere you go. You just may or may not see it. I know that at Mid-Dell, I had it in my slides. It should have been in our slides. Oh, it was last week. So last week we skipped through them because I didn't want to go through all of them. There's like 19 of them, but that was the code of ethics. You should read through some of those. I mean, they're pretty standard. It's pretty basic. It's stuff that some of you're probably going to go, oh, that's common sense. But apparently it's not so common, or they would not have to put it in writing. Kind of like some of the laws that we have. Obviously, it's not so common, or they wouldn't have to tell you. I mean, it's kind of like you get that candy bar, do not eat the wrapper. I mean, some of the stuff that they have to write on things nowadays, you're like, okay, obviously someone did this, or they would not have had to have written it on here.
The spray bottles at my job say "do not drink" on the side.
Yeah, because obviously someone has tried to drink it before. There is a reason why it's on there. In filling an open position for a U.S.-based IT organization, do you think that preference should be shown for qualified candidates from the United States over qualified candidates from foreign countries? Why or why not?
depends on the hiring company. If it's a government employer, then you're not gonna really take foreign candidates.
Well, I mean, if they're both qualified. Okay, so has anybody watched a border show for Canada or Australia or something like that? Okay, a lot of those in those countries, people try to come into those countries to work. Because whatever country they're from, they cannot get a job. And so they're very, very strict on letting people into the country because they don't want people to come in and take jobs away from qualified Canadian workers. And so if you do not have a work permit to come into the country, and they find out, and they'll go through your phone, they'll go through all your papers, they'll go through everything. And if they find out that you're coming into the country to work, because there was a lot of episodes where they had people that were trying to come into work, they will send you back. They won't let you in because they want the people in their country that are qualified to work to actually get the job. Now, if it had said unqualified candidates from the United States or qualified candidates, but better qualified candidates from foreign countries, I can kind of see it. But I think that if we have qualified candidates here, yeah, they should hire the qualified candidates here before they hire the qualified candidates elsewhere. Anybody want to argue against that?
I just want to mention something weird. Whenever I applied for something, I mentioned, are you from any of these U.S. embargoed countries? It's asked specifically if I'm from an embargoed country. So that's something to do with it too, I think.
I mean, it's different if the person is here legally on a work visa and they're trying to get a job. That's a little different.
Are you talking about like H-1B visas, the highly skilled migrant visas that they give out to like Indian and Chinese and French?
Yeah. Because I mean, you're gonna have qualified people everywhere, but I still think that the people in the United States should probably have preference. Now, if they're not qualified, then no, I think the foreign people should definitely get the job because you don't want to fill the companies with unqualified people and sink the business. Impact of code of ethics on ethical behavior defines what the organization aspires to become, rules and principles, commitment to continuing education for those who practice the profession. We're running out of time, in case you were wondering. It's over at 6:50, right? Or is it 6:55? Oh, we have 10 minutes in. Certification indicates that a professional possesses a particular set of skills, knowledge, or abilities. Doesn't necessarily. Someone like my son, he can read the material one time and he can pass the exam. Me, I would have to study and study and study and study, and then there's still no guarantee that I'm actually going to pass the test. Just because I get in there and I freeze up and I like freak out. That's why I don't like tests, but I have to give tests, and that's why you have the tests that you have. You have the quizzes, and the tests are from the quizzes, so you have a really awesome study guide if you use it. That's because I don't like tests, and I suck at tests. My students keep asking at Middale, they're like, so when are we having a test? Do you want a test? I can give you a test. Are you sure you want a test? So I'm trying to arrange a test for them this week because apparently they want one because they keep asking. The difference between my classes is like night and day. My morning class, they come in and they do what they're supposed to do without me telling them to do it. My class from last year, they come in and it's so chaotic. I can't get a word in edgewise. I mean, they're just like buddy. They weren't like this last year. Last year they were a lot quieter, but they weren't all in the same class last year. And so you combine them all and it's like chaos. Because you don't understand. I mean, the ones that I'm having issues with, yes. And they're all seniors. Problem is that there's two of them I had issues with last year, and I had them separated. But there's one that was like super quiet last year, never said a word. But I had a smaller class in the first class last year, and nobody sat next to him. Well, he sits right here next to them, and those three boys together. Oh my gosh! So I think I'm gonna have to do away with my first come first served, get that seat for the rest of the semester thing, and I'm gonna have to separate. And then we had this little girl, this cute little girl that came in from Francis Tuttle, never been there before, and those two boys that sit in the back, they are flirting with her all the time, and I'm sitting here going, "Are you kidding me?" So yeah, it's like teenagers. It's just a thing. Yeah. So they think that if you have a certification that you know more. Some cases that's the truth. All I know is that when I took my Network Plus exam, it was hard. When I took my Security Plus exam, I was like, that's not as hard as everybody keeps saying it is. Because I've done so many classes on security that to me, the Security Plus exam was easy, and the Network Plus, because, all the new stuff that I've never really gone over, that was hard. Plus you had to assemble a network, and it'd been a long time since I've done any of that kind of stuff, and it was crazy. It's crazier now that I'm teaching it. So I'm sitting here going, I'm the expert. It's like, we wired our back room last year. And I was the expert. And it was like, okay, I've done this once. This was fun. It was fun. I had a lot of fun with it. I learned some things that I didn't know. And I learned some things that I probably should do next time. So, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I have to teach them somehow. One to have hands-on experience. I didn't want them coming in and not doing any networking. And it's a good thing, especially since this year's class might actually get to do an internship. So, government license. Permission to engage in activity to operate a business. Encourages IT workers to follow the highest standards of profession and practice a code of ethics. Issues associated with government licensing of IT workers. There's no universally accepted core body of knowledge. Body of knowledge outlines agreed upon sets of skills and abilities that all licensed professionals must possess. That's almost impossible with IT, though, because IT is changing so steadily that's just, I don't know, that's crazy to me. Lack of clarity on who should manage the content and administration of license exams. I mean, we're having that issue because Rose State wanted to get to where they could issue the CompTIA tests, and they're having issues getting that approved because there's plenty of people now that issue it. The problem is they're a long ways away. It'd be so much simpler for my mid-Del folk if we had it over here, because then we could just take a field trip, come over here, they could take their test, we could go back. There's no administrative body to assess and ensure competence of the individual workers. IT professional malpractice, negligence is not doing something that a reasonable person would do, or doing something that a reasonable person would not do. Do we all know someone who's done something like that? No? Been negligent on something? Y'all are already zoned out and you're ready to go, aren't you?
I've been negligent myself.
I mean, I think we all have in some way or another, whether intentional or just laziness. Duty of, do what?
So it had to happen on the ship.
Really?
They were supposed to have all their systems ready to go before they deployed. I was at staff, 3rd Fleet. We went on the ship with them. I spent 2 weeks trying to bring their system up. Because people didn't do their damn job.
And you're always going to run into those people who don't do their damn job. I mean, even where I worked, there were people who sat in the office and watched movies. If they did tickets, it was the ones that they could remote in and do the job. And that was it. And they'd leave everything else for other people. Me, I didn't like remoting in and doing stuff because once we went to AFNet, there was a conflict with the IP addresses. So you would remote into one machine and you'd get somebody totally different. And so I kind of said, you know what? I'm perfectly okay walking all the way to the other end of 3001 because this is not for me. And so I had more fun doing it that way because I met some really awesome people. Duty of care, obligation to protect people against any unreasonable harm or risk, failure risks, and breach of the duty of care. Malpractice, ethical issues for IT users, software piracy. We've never done any of that, have we? Nah. Not that any of us would really admit to. Inappropriate use of computing resources. None of you use your work computer for anything but work, right? I mean, that would be kind of like me using my work computer to do my Rose State stuff. Especially like at Tinker. I would never sit at Tinker and grade all of my Rose State homework. I would never do that. That was the biggest thing I had to get used to when I started working at Mid-Del. because I was so used to being able to do all my grading and setting up and everything at Tinker, and then I had Midell, and there's no time to do anything, so I had to do it all on my own time. Man, that was rough. Was that correct? Was that appropriate for me to be using Tinker to do all my grading? No, but I had time. I was dedicated support for 38 people. How often do you think 38 people need technical support? You know, it's surprising because the way I would do it is I'd come in, I'd spend my little bit of time doing whatever I wanted to do, usually doing road state stuff. And then I'd get up and I'd go and I'd visit with my people. Under the guise of, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? And then we'd sit and we'd visit, and it was awesome. But if I didn't go around and I didn't get to know them and I didn't visit with them, do you think they would have told me, hey, you know, I can't get this to work? No, they probably, unless it was something that they were at a work stoppage for, they're not going to get up and complain about every single little thing. But if I was over there, they'd be like, hey, Virginia, I cannot get this. I can't figure this out. Can you help me? And so I had a lot more work orders just because I'd go out and I'd visit and people would be like, hey, you know, I need some help here. But if I didn't get up and move, they would never come and ask me.
They'd find a workaround.
They would find a workaround. They'd do something else. And the guy who took over for me, they got rid of him. But he would never walk around. He sat at his desk the entire time. And then when they would finally come and get him because they needed something, he'd be like, I don't know how to fix that. The final straw was them walking over and him being asleep at the desk. And when they actually came to talk to him to relieve him of his duties, he was asleep at the desk. Yeah. So it wasn't something, you know, where they were making it up. The boss actually saw him asleep at his desk. And no, not him. He was just freaking lazy. I liked the guy. I thought the guy was great. I mean, we had great conversations, but I mean, I was never on the other end, a user. And so to me, I never saw that part of him. But they gave him the opportunity. He could either step down from dedicated support and go back to the regular desk, or he could quit. He quit. So, yeah. Well, the contract was changing, and they were taking a major pay cut, plus losing some vacation, and nobody was happy with it, which is part of the reason, part of his attitude problem in that position. And so, yeah, he that was it. So, Jamie, want me to go back over the homework before we leave, or y'all good? Okay. But that's all it is I just did a screenshot from the book so that y'all would have it.
So don't use the discussion part on the top.
No, just read the thing and then do the three. I think it's like 3 or 4 questions at the end. That's it. So, yeah, I understand why it gets confusing. I just didn't block out that one section because, I don't know, I didn't.
Did you also receive my email on the other